This last question we have from our webinar is, I have formed an inclusion panel of leaders in my company. They're all white males and one female. In an effort to keep them accountable, how do I continue to keep them engaged?
Well, I really love this example, the all white male panel with one female. I'm going to guess this is an organization that is pretty much made up of, white people and mostly male in leadership positions, or else we might expect it to be more diverse than that, but that's okay. I actually like the idea of having a diversity and inclusion panel made up of mostly white males, because one of the core concepts, that when we talk, and this is something that, if you go and look at the data on this about where change can really happen, is that the change really has to come and be driven from the people who have the power. The majority group has to own that change, or else it's very difficult to make the change happen. So if you have a white male dominated organization and you have white males in the diversity group, then I think you're well positioned to start really making some shifts, in that organization. So when we talk about allyship, or you talk about who really owns the problem of inequality or racism or misogyny in our society and in organizations, it's the people in power who really own that problem. And are primarily accountable for making that change. And so you're in a really good position to, go down that road and actually have impacts. A couple of just key suggestions, in keeping them on track and holding them accountable. Just think about it from a change management perspective. Apply change management tools, set measurable key performance indicators that everybody can agree to. For culture change like this, and a shift to a more inclusive, diverse culture, it's more of a long-term strategy. It's more of a long-term goal. So don't be afraid to set a goal that might be 3 years down the road. And then you'll have to back into quarterly or annual goals that everyone can agree to shooting for. The second thing to do once you've set those goals, then you want to look at very specific critical success factors, or CSFs as they're called, critical success factors that will enable you to reach those goals. And it's in those, defining those critical paths and those critical success factors where the action can be taken. So take, for example, we need to increase the number of diverse candidates. We have a problem with retaining diverse candidates once they come into the organization, which, by the way, is a very common issue. A lot of organizations are doing a good job of attracting diverse candidates, but they're having a hard time retaining them. Why is that? Well, because there are elements about the culture that are not appealing, to those diverse candidates once they come in. So that's another type of critical success factor. Because if you make all the effort to attract them and recruit them and hire them, what's the point if they leave 3 months later? You're really not achieving anything. So identify those critical success factors. For example, recruiting processes is a great place to start. It's usually going to be on the top of the list of the 3 or 4 critical success factors. Don't have 20 critical success factors, but identify 3 or 4. And then identify how you're going to make incremental change, in those areas. And then have each member of that panel take ownership of that critical success factor and be accountable for reporting back to the panel the progress that's being made in each area, and then have the panel itself own the KPIs and be able to report back to the leadership of the organization and to the entire organization the progress that you're making on those goals you have identified. So that's how I would go about doing it. David, anything else to add?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that unfortunately, we have to acknowledge that white men do have more power in organizations just based on data. And so it really is their job to help make change. So having this panel of people like that could actually be very beneficial. It could be very effective because when you're addressing a panel full of leaders, you need to speak their language. And their language is going to be what's best for the company and relying on data instead of opinion. So keeping them engaged and holding them accountable, addressing them with these critical success factors and KPIs is going to be something that they understand and make them want to address this issue in a business formatted way instead of an opinion-based way, which could be less successful.